Hey, what is up, you guys? It's Kim, and you know what day it is? It's Wednesday, which means I am back with yet another Top 5 Wednesday. So remember being in high school and forcing yourself through all of those god-awful required readings? Scarlet Letter was all sorts of boring, and Shakespeare is not meant to be read silently sitting at your desk. Let's be honest though, not all of those required readings were completely awful. Some of them were pretty alright, and some of them were actually even good. Don't lie, I know you probably enjoyed at least one book that you read in high school. And with that, let's get started with my top 5 favorite required readings from high school. Coming in at number 5 is one that I really honestly don't remember too much about at this point in my life, but I do remember that I liked it, and that is The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. I believe I read this in 10th grade, so it's been quite a while since I've read it. I don't really remember it that much, but I do remember that I enjoyed it, and I do remember that I did not have to use SparkNotes to get through that unit, so that is always a plus. And if you're not in high school, SparkNotes is going to be your best friend, so check out that website. Number 4 is The Pearl by John Steinbeck. Again, I don't really remember too much about this. I haven't read it since 9th grade. And I know a lot of people prefer Of Mice and Men to The Pearl, but I actually liked The Pearl better. If I remember correctly, it was a really quick read, and it was about greed and how greed and having money and power can change you as a person. But yeah, I thought it was a really good book. I know I didn't really have too much to say about these first 2, but the next 3 are books that I really do remember, really did like, and yeah. Coming in at number 3, we've got The Giver by Lois Lowry. This was actually not a required reading for me when I was in high school, and it wasn't a required reading when I was in middle school. I read this book for the first time when I was in college, and I took a young adult literature class. And there was at one point we broke into groups and we did group projects, and my group elected to read The Giver. I was the only one in my group who had not read that book before. I was the only one who it was not a required reading for. And since it was a required reading for so many other people, I figured it could make it onto my favorite required readings list. Yes. I actually wish that this had been a required reading when I was in high school. I think that more people should read this book because it's just really good. I loved it so much reading it in college, and I would have loved it just as much reading it in high school. There were scenes that I had to read again because I was just like, what? Like for example, when they tell you what happens when there's twins. That was, what? And when Jonas first starts to see colors, it was this moment of, what? Because I had no idea that it was all in black and white until they mentioned that he starts seeing color, and it was, whoa. It was just a really good book. And I feel like if you haven't read it, you should read it. And I feel like it should be a required reading in schools. Number 2 is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I loved this book. I read it in, I want to say 11th grade. I was obsessed with it. I speed read through it so quickly when I first got it, and then I read it again to stay up with the rest of my class so that we're all at the same point in the book, because that's so important. And I actually read it probably 3 or 4 times during that unit in school before I had to give it back to my teacher. And then I found it at a yard sale for 10 cents the summer after senior year, so I bought it for myself because I loved that book and I would read it for fun. I think everyone should read it. It's a classic. It's really good. Definitely the second best book that I read in high school. And if you're sitting there like, what the heck, Kim? To Kill a Mockingbird was the best book I read in high school. Why is it not number 1? Well, here's the reason. My number 1 book that was a required reading in high school is one that might surprise you. Salem's Lot by Stephen King. Yes, that was a required reading. So my senior year of high school, I actually took 4 English classes because English was my favorite class, and I elected to take 4 English classes because why not? I'm a loser. It happens. But one of those 4 that I took was Gothic fiction, and one of our required readings in that class was, yes, Salem's Lot by Stephen King. It's not my favorite Stephen King book, but it's the first Stephen King book that I read, and it is my favorite book that I read in high school. I thought that this book was great. It's a vampire book, and it's what turned me on to Stephen King's books. And if you haven't read it, I recommend that you read it. If you haven't read Stephen King, crawl out from underneath that rock you're living in. I'm sorry, was that mean? That's probably mean. Don't hate me. I'm sorry. And that's that. That is it. What are your top 5 required readings from high school? If you are not in high school yet, what books are you hoping that you'll have to read? If you're in high school, what books are you currently reading? And if you're out of high school, what books were the best or worst that you had to read? Leave a comment down below. I read them all. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. I love you all. You're all amazing. Bye.